Happy 2.5 months before the actual 3rd anniversary for Arknights Global! Yay! And now it's time for Shijupool, Irene, and Specter. Oh, the Unchained one, yes. So, well, I think we've all seen the live stream. We see the tweet right here. So I think it's not surprising that I am going to be doing a Shijupool video on this limited banner that is coming really soon. Now, because of the complexity of these two operators, not just in their mechanic and also their use case and some modules that we have to talk about and some of the future use cases, I will put a timestamp down below so that you guys can just click between and then just jump to the operator that you're more interested in. So without further ado, I guess we should begin from answering the short question of should you pull this banner at all? And my clear answer is definitely yes, but not what you guys think. Yeah, let me explain. First, let us begin from Irene. Irene is the operator that I actually recommend most people to get. But before we talk about like blah 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 blah, we should look at her first and then let me explain why. Now, she is a double hit guard, so just like Chen. The majority of her skills, well, all of her skills, gain SP upon attack, which means that she will work really well with Chen, especially after Chen gets her module where she can give more SP regen. We'll talk about that later. Which means that obviously she has decent attack, low-ish HP, 20-ish cost to deploy. I think these are pretty usual stats that we're used to. Every single attack she will hit twice, so that means that the SP regen that you're seeing, the SP requirement here you're seeing right here, should be halved by the actual attack, depending on how you see the attack speed. So this is actually 12 hits for skill 3, for example, because every time she hits twice, that gives you 24 SP. Now, let's take a look at her talents. Ignore the module first. So her first talent is that when she is dealing physical damage to enemies, there's a 50% chance to ignore 50% of their defense. Sorry, 50% chance to ignore 50% of defense. Okay. Now, when the enemy is airborne, the chance is increased to 100%. So 100% chance to ignore, not decrease, ignore 50% of their defense. And that can come in really handy, really important. I will talk about it later. Now, her second talent is that increased attack speed for 18. This can go up to 21. And when there are sea creature enemies on the field, that effect is doubled. So, as you can see, this greatly benefits for her SP regen, which is actually really good. And her first talent is just incredible because you know about how physical damage calculation works. You know that this is just a great skill. And then because I don't think I need to explain how defense works anyway, so we can ignore that. Now, her module is that when she attacks enemies, she can ignore 70 of their defense, which is really good. If you get that to module level 3, obviously you're gonna get better, but we're not gonna get that anytime soon. Most people aren't gonna get that anytime soon anyway, and I think skill 1 does the job. So I would say just stick with level 1 is fine. If you go to level 3, you will get more attack in the second talent, but the ignore defense will be the same for level 2, level 3 module anyway, so I don't think that's really necessary. Now, let's take a look at her skills. So, her first skill is that it takes 5 SP, goes down to 3 SP at M3, first of all. Her next attack will deal equivalent to up to 200% of her damage attack as physical damage and let them float for 1 second. And then deal an extra attack that is equivalent to up to 200% of her attack as physical damage. So what this means is that the first attack might not have ignore 50% defense, but the second hit is guaranteed to ignore their defense. 50% of it, obviously. And since it is floating for 1 second, which that will pretty much make all melee enemies stop attacking, which is very good, a great survival skill. Don't M3 it. Yeah, you don't really want to M3 it, because here's the problem. Let's say, as an example, when you're hitting an enemy, so like there's a bunch of enemies coming towards Irene. She's like attacking, knocks the enemy up that has like half a HP. Now she's going to target the other enemy that gets blocked by her. He's just shuffling enemy, and then the previous enemy still has half health and not getting attacked by anyone. Completely destroys the purpose of, like, it will just screw you over, and you will have a bunch of enemies that still have like half health or something, and it's not doing you any good. You will just get overwhelmed by a bunch of enemies because she only blocks 2, and then they will just run through. So usually I really wouldn't like this skill unless you're trying to do strategies like infinite control. So like, I don't know, golem, you knock them up and then drop down and then knock them up again. Like, I think there can be a strategy there, but I haven't really seen a use case. We might get one in the future. I'm just not going to guarantee it, so probably don't touch skill 1 for now. Now, skill 2. So this is a automatic manually triggered skill. Skill 1 is automatically triggered. Skill 2 is manually triggered, requires minimum 8 SP. She will immediately attack 6 enemies in front of her in a silver ash attack range area, and deal up to 400% of her attack as physical damage, and let enemies that are at weight level 3 or below float for 3 seconds. So you see the difference between skill 2 and skill 3 is that this only lets enemies that are light enough go airborne, which means that if you're going against enemies like golem or like really tanky enemies, this will not let them float up. The good thing is that you can let the lighter enemies, which usually has lower defense, float up, and those enemies can be prioritized by anti-air snipers like Exia. So this is a really good use case where if you feel like, okay, I have Exia out, and then I'm like, okay, I don't want her to hit the high defense enemies. Remember back when Arknights Global hasn't even launched and we were in Discord? Maybe not all of you remember this, but everyone was like, oh my god, Exia is one of the worst operators, 6-star operators to get from a beginner banner because she sucks at hitting heavy, like high defense enemies. Exia sucks. Well, this prevents that, essentially. Obviously nowadays people know how these games work more, and then, you know, we just know that's just isn't the case, but you can still use this skill for that kind of a use case. You can charge this skill twice as well, which is really nice. It doesn't go up to 3 charges even if you M3, and personally I feel like if all you want is the control and the knock up, skill level 7 just does the job. Now this goes to a bit of a sideways because recently I got a comment in my other video saying that, well, Irene can also work with other operators that can gain extra benefits from her knocking enemies up, like Cutter can deal double the damage if enemies are airborne. Also, by the way, this is a wrong statement. I'm just going to repeat what he says, quote unquote. Not quote unquote. Paraphrasing. He pretty much said something like Thorn's poison will also be doubled because the enemy becomes airborne, which is technically incorrect. Thorn's damage does Thorn's poison is doubled if enemy is range attack. So it doesn't matter if they're airborne, if they're range attack, it's double the poison damage. It's just that usually drones are range attack, that makes them take double the poison damage as well, but that doesn't mean if you knock a melee enemy up, then they will instantly become range attack. That's just not how the game works. Okay, so a correction there. that's beside the point. Let's go on to skill 3. Now, skill 3 is the main skill that you will want to M3. What it does is that after 24 SP has been charged, she will immediately hit all enemies, which is in the area of Passenger's skill 3 splash area. You need to be really, you need to know about how Passenger works to get that reference. But in a huge area, she will knock all the enemies up for 4 seconds and then deal 300% of her attack as physical damage to them. And then immediately start spinning. We've all seen the skill animation. She starts spinning and hits true AoE for 12 times. Now, this true AoE is random, completely random. The targeting priority is completely random, and it's a small AoE. So if you have enemies on both left, right, top, and down, I don't care, like 2 sides, the damage will be spread towards multiple enemies. But if you have a really tight space of enemies and they're all hit, it's pretty much 12 AoE damage on the same enemies. And every single one of those AoEs will be 250% of her attack physical damage. So the best thing about this skill is that because she will definitely finish spinning within 4 seconds, all of that damage will ignore 50% of enemy's defense. But if the enemy is heavy enough, if I recall correctly, if they are heavier than 3 units of weight, then the floating mechanic only lasts for half the time, which means that only about 8 hits, if I recall correctly, somewhere near 8 hits of this 12 AoE will actually have ignore 50% defense. But even then, this is a really high damage skill and really useful, especially if you have a bunch of enemies that has really high defense and you can just kill all of them in one click of a button. Now, I would definitely like to showcase this in roguelike, because in roguelike she is absolutely perfect. But there is one thing that really benefits you if you're going to use Irene in your daily basis, and that is that module. Remember when I mentioned that there's this Chen module thing? Well, when Irene gets level 3 module, Chen also gets level 3 module. And when Chen gets level 3 module, her module will have greatly increased SP regen for skills that only gain SP when attacking, which is true for all 3 skills for Irene. And that will actually make sure that if there's a huge gap between enemy waves, Irene can still charge up her skill before the next big wave. So if you don't have that and you just have normal Chen, it's like, 4 seconds per SP? Not really fast enough. And then if you don't have enemies and then Chen, and then the enemy comes in like, I don't know, a huge wave and no like small scattering amount of enemies, you don't get to charge the skills up as soon as possible that you needed to. So when I feel like you need to get Irene, I mean that she will work even better down the road, but I also mean that for now, she is worth your pull. Because this mechanic of ignore 50% of enemies' defense is so great. Now, first you can decrease their defense by half or something with Elysium's skill, and then you can use Jameer, Doll, all of that, decrease enemies' defense, and then ignore 50%. But beware that is ignore, it is not decrease. So you cannot hope for enemies that have really high defense, knock them up, and then they will be instantly become vulnerable against like X. That's not really how it will work. So that's pretty much Irene. It's a bit of a spoiler alert. If you don't want this, you can jump to the Specter the Unchained part. So there's going to be a new mode. I don't know the actual naming of it. It's like a trading card game type of a gameplay. It's called SSS or something. I don't know the actual what the 3S's actually stand for, whatever. In that mode, if you have Irene, it's an easy game. That's all I will say for now. Now, let us jump to the next operator. So, I suspect that the majority of us are more hooked into the Specter the Unchained. And Specter the Unchained is one of those operators that I find really hard to recommend everyone to get. So here's who I would recommend to get, like you to get Specter. First of all, if you really want all the limited operators, because I know there will be some of you that's going to be like, well, but she's an unlimited operator, so obviously I'm going to pull. If limited is all you care about and you don't care about the strength, go ahead. But I also don't understand why you're here. Second of all, if you're a really late game player and you're willing to try out different type of strategies and you have a bunch of resources, yes, you can get Specter the Unchained. I think she will be worth your resources. If you have that like you have a lot of resources that you can just put into her. The third kind of people is that if you are into CC, because I do see her CC potentials. We'll go into deeper why that is as we speak. So, surrounding these three, I will talk about that, but first let's take a look at her. So, Specter the Unchained, she's a 6-star specialist. The Dole class, just like Benna and all that, and Kazemaru. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm doing. It's the stand user. Yes, it's the stand user. So, her first talent is that stand will decrease enemies' movement speed by 60%. Oh shoot, that's the wrong one. Decrease enemy movement speed by 40% and deal AoE damage equivalent to 40% of her attack as arts damage. Ignore this number because this is not true until you have level 3 module. This is not true. This is BS. And it will be one of the reasons why I would recommend you, like, those people who can actually pull this operator. Second talent is that when she's in the team, all Abyssal Hunter operators will have 20% increased max HP. Which, if you want to play in a faction squad, oh yeah, that's the fourth option. If you want to play as faction squads, you can get Specter. She'll be worth it. Now, let's take a look at her skills. As you can see, I am 6'd her. I highly regret it. I'll talk about why as well. Now, Specter's for skill 1 is that the moment you activate the skill, she will immediately switch her HP with another operator that has the lowest HP ratio. So if one operator has, like, I don't know, if 2 operators both have 100 HP, but let's say one's Hoshi and one is Ekshi, one is, let's say, Chen. So Hoshi definitely has way more HP, max HP, and that means the 100 HP is lower in proportion. Then Specter will switch her HP with Hoshi. Understandable? Now, she will also grant herself up to plus 150% attack. Now, the skill will cost minimum 35 SP and last 25 seconds. So she can change her HP with another operator once every 60 seconds. I think that explains the whole story why I didn't M3 this skill, because you would not want to use this skill whatsoever. Next. Like, I'm not even kidding. That's actually how I feel. The only situation where I can see this become useful is in another thing I'll talk about really soon, but generally you don't want to M3 this skill. You probably won't use it anyway. Next skill. Skill 2. So Specter skill 2, Specter the Unchained skill 2 is just like the original Specter skill 2. So within the duration, 20-second duration of her skill 2, she will grant herself plus 130% attack, 50 attack speed, and during the duration of the skill, her HP won't go below 1. So that is actually 5 more seconds more than the original Specter. And because there will be a patch in CN where you can bring the altered version and the original version of the operator onto the field at the same time, potentially you can get 35 seconds of stalling just out of this skill. Just out of these two operators. Just 35 seconds. Will not die. So that is one of the biggest reasons why I said that if you're looking for future like CC potentials, you might want to get this operator. Now, there's a huge downside, and I will have to mention that again later. We'll have to go through the skills, and then I'll have to talk about it later. It is really important, so I hope you guys can follow with me. So this is survivability. Easy. Next skill. So Specter the Unchained skill 3 gives her the ability to have increased attack interval, so her attack is slower, but she will hit all the enemies she blocks, so she will hit 2 enemies. Her attack will be increased by 260%, so that's 3.6 times her attack. HP limit increased by 200%. When she's attacking enemies that has higher HP proportion than her, she will do extra 70% of her attack as physical damage. Or else, if the enemy has lower HP proportion than her, so let's say if she has max HP and the enemy has been hit, so they're not max HP anymore, then she won't deal the extra physical damage. Instead, she will lose 3% of her HP, which is really stupid, really dumb. Now, at first, you might think, wow, plus 260% attack with 900 base attack. That is so strong, right? Yes and no. Yes and no. So the whole point of this operator is that you want the stand. I guess I have to talk about the stand situation. So for all of us who's already used this type of operator, the stand user operator, I think you can understand what I'm talking about. But for those who haven't really used them, let me explain. The whole purpose of this archetype is that they can use their stand. And especially in this case where a whole talent of Specter the Unchained is based on her talent. Right. Now look at her skills. Except for skill 1 where she gets less HP and she might die faster. Except for that. Skill 2, she won't die. She just won't die. Oh, obviously after the skill duration she will be seen as knocked out and she will change into the sand, but she won't die for 20 seconds. Skill 3, she has increased 200% HP limit, which is 9,000 HP by the way. She's most likely not gonna die. In which she will not activate her talent. And let me tell you, you want her talent to be activated. You want the stand to come out. Why? Because when her stand is out, she will have module level 3 minus 60% of movement speed for all enemies and deal 80% of her attack as arch damage per second. That is so strong. That is the most amount of damage you can get from her. You don't even care about the hit 2 plus 260. That's nothing compared to her module talent. And so here's the contradiction I see between the design of her skill set and her talent. You either want her to survive and you activate the skill, and if that's all you need, then you probably don't even need her because we have other operators that can pretty much survive about the same or even better in some other situations. Or you want the module, activated buff talent. And what are you gonna get from leveling like M3ing your skills? You're just gonna survive better. And if you really want the damage, you're not looking at skill 3. You don't care about skill 3 damage. Skill 3 damage is not as good as level 3 module damage. But what are you going to choose? You want the talent. If you want the talent, oh, by the way, you must go to level 3 module, which is really expensive also. So that's why I remember when I said at the beginning, if you really want to get her, you gotta have plentiful of materials and resources so that you can get level 3 module. If you're willing to like just chuck that amount of resources at her, E2 90, probably you don't need M3. You really don't need M3. You can, like I said, skill 2 CC is still pretty good, but if you ever want to get the full potential out of her, you need module level 3, and that's really expensive, and most beginners won't be getting that. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that she is completely useless. There are some use cases that you can use her. It's not a must. I must remind. It is not a must for you to get Specter. There are some situations where if you want to do a few less operators in your run, you want to trust grind, there are some cases where Specter does a really good job. Now, another use case. Let's say, for example, you're playing roguelike, IS2, and you're like, I just want to pick whatever team as your heart wishes or something, that team where you just get random operators, three random classes to begin with. And you're like, okay, I got specialist, medic. In those situations, you can take Specter. She's a good starter for roguelike. And then potentially future CC. In all three situations, you can take Specter. All under one circumstance. You have enough resource to get level 3 module. If you don't have the resources, or you do not plan on investing that much resource onto one operator, I would highly recommend you to just don't care about it too much if you didn't get it, because everyone's going to pull this banner, okay? But what I'm saying is that while you're pulling the banner, if you didn't get Specter the Unchained, don't be too sad about it. That is the conclusion of this video. I hope you guys learned something today. I hope this video actually helped you guys. And if you actually didn't get Specter, don't be too sad about it. At least I hope this video did that for you. Thank you guys for watching. So I think for those of you who actually watched till this part of the video, you guys might be interested in some other videos I was planning. So allow me to explain why I didn't do a Horns IS2 video. So to begin with, I didn't want to use my Chinese account for showcase because it's not good. And I won't go into the details about that, but apparently it's not good. So no for that. And then so I was like, okay, I should do it on my English account, where after I M3 both of her skill 2 and skill 3, I would do it. But sadly, I had a lung infection because I just had COVID. So it really didn't do me that well, should I say. So it ended up being the fact that I am actually still currently not fully like cured. I'm still recording this video just because, you know, I wanted to do it. But Horn IS2 video might not be coming, and I can't even promise you guys a Irene Specter IS2 video. I will try my best, but depending on my health condition, I might not be able to do that. So still, thank you guys for your support, especially I must shout out a friend, Shirogane, who is my only member of my YouTube channel. He's been a member of my YouTube channel for like a year now. So really thanks to you, Shiro, that I am actually getting some, how should I say, emotional support when I'm working on these kind of videos, because yeah, sometimes I just feel like, especially when I'm living alone and I can see those helps, it really does help. So thank you for your support, and for the rest of you, I really hope to see you guys in my next video. Hopefully I can do a video on the IS2 situation, but we'll see how that goes. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.